Work shy, lazy bastard. That's my favourite quote from a client. It was a managing director who was venting in frustration, to be fair, about a member of their leadership team, a director no less. And yes, he used those exact words. So, welcome to my podcast, my attempt to help entrepreneurs and business leaders just like you understand what it is that I see every day. The things that are so common, I ceased to be amazed or surprised by them years ago. And yet they really are common issues many of you are dealing with every single day. And all of those problems that you are facing have, for the most part, been solved by someone else before. So it's definitely something that you can do something about, should you choose. Whatever it is that's holding you back, and whether you know that it's a common issue or not, whether you know there are solutions or not, is kind of irrelevant at this point. If you're suffering the consequences of those common issues, it's because you haven't fixed them yet. And I say yet. One thing I can promise you, though, is they will not fix themselves. No matter how much you tell yourself that they will, when you just make a little bit more money or get a few more clients or deal with that particular short term problem that you are facing right now, or that when you get bigger. Here's the simple fact: if you get bigger, the problems will get bigger along with you. And actually, you probably won't get much bigger until you solve those problems. So it's best to fix them now. Today, I want to tackle a pervasive issue to get us started that haunts the corridors of most organisations. An issue that is often cloaked in silence or addressed in whispers, or just people don't want to say, unless it's behind um, a veil of secrecy. And that's the point that people just have no common sense. I think people are showing a lack of commitment or not doing the job properly, or they need to ask you how to do it every single time, or they just can't think for themselves. They're not effective enough. They need to be more efficient or just plain quicker. Mm. These are the quick to judge labels that we affix to team. They're not just words, they're reflections of a deeper problem within, for the most part, your organizational culture and leadership approach. They aren't isolated incidents either. This is a recurring theme I've encountered with clients in boardrooms and management meetings over more than a decade of working with entrepreneur and business leaders across multiple different industries and multiple different sizes of business. So you may well ask, why is this so common? Well, a better question might be to ask, what does it truly signify about your teams and your leadership? Typically, to an outsider perspective, these labels might be interpreted as your version of a personal failing of an individual employee. And yet, over years of seeing this and interfacing with a myriad of businesses, I've come to recognize these accusations not as an actual problem, but as symptoms of a broader, more systemic issue. I think they signal misalignments within your organizational culture and a disconnect between your leadership expectations, your management effectiveness, and your employee engagement. So let's dissect that a little more. When terms like lack of common sense or shows no commitment are bandied about, they're often said in response to a particular failure of somebody to do something or to understand something, or for an individual to align with their job's demands. What is often missed is it's also something that signifies the organization's failure to provide clear expectations, direction, adequate support, and meaningful engagement. It isn't just caused by a lack of effort from employees. It's just as much about a lack of leadership in cultivating a culture that champions initiative, accountability, and growth. After all, in order for something to be common sense, there would have to be a common upbringing, a common education, a common group of friends, a common social life, common parenting, and a common career history for you to have all of that sense in common. It's the same thing with commitment. What are you expecting from someone? Because if you're expecting them to have exactly the same level of commitment as you do with your business, then you should probably be giving them half of it so that you're both equally committed to the business. Otherwise, you're deluded. So, what are your expectations, and have you been clear in those expectations of your people? I'm not asking whether you've told them, I'm asking whether they understood. And that brings us to a critical junction. What is the role of leadership in transforming these challenges into opportunities? Personally, what I've seen over the last 30 years of working in and then with businesses is the erosion of the conventional command and control style of management in favor of the much more socially acceptable version of leadership that everybody wants to tell you is the new way forward, that involves everyone liking you all of the time and only ever focusing on the positives. Yet every single uber successful person you will ever meet, your Bransons, your Musks, your Gates, and your Bezos, to name a few, will tell you to hire slow and fire fast. Yes, they will tell you that when people don't measure up, which means you need to measure them, get rid of them. And that, my friends, is what we call performance management. It's not called performance leadership because it's not a function of leadership. And the pervasive claptrap I've heard for the last 30 or 40 years that management is a function of leadership has just given senior people, senior management, senior leaders in the business an excuse not to manage people. Leadership, to me, is about picking a direction for your business to go in. It's about vision and goals. It's about creating a culture that defines the right things to do, that attracts people with the right values to join it. Like the culture of a civilization, which is in essence a set of people who share broadly similar values that agree to follow a set of rules most of the time. So the Romans, the Greeks, the Egyptians, and yes, the British Empire were all founded on this concept. And it is when the people no longer share those values and when the rules are no longer accepted and followed that the culture falls apart and the civilization dies. Same for a business. There is very little difference in terms of concept between the culture of a business and the culture of a civilization or a country or an organization of any kind. So I ask you, what are your rules? What are your values? And are you creating that kind of culture in your business? I'm going to say it again. Leadership is about setting direction, setting values and rules. Setting values, rules, and ethics that you will adopt to get to wherever it is that you're going. And maybe I should say the thing about rules again, as it seems we've forgotten about them these days. That's an interesting point, actually. Leadership is all I see these days. Leadership this, leadership that. There are leadership coaches, leadership programs, a million books and videos on the subject. There are seminars, workshops. In fact, there's so much stuff out there on leadership, you'd think we have it covered. And yet, if it was that simple, you would all be billionaires. And you're not. So it isn't. It's a little bit like hard work. If success was just down to hard work, most of you listening to this and myself would all be billionaires. And we're not. So it isn't. I'm not saying that leadership skills are not important. Quite the opposite. As a business grows, those skills need to be developed and honed to be able to maintain growth in an ethical manner. And I'm not saying the world doesn't need better leaders or that large corporates are often badly led. That I am exactly saying that. What I am saying that in most organizations that I work with, it's not just a lack of leadership that holds them back. From what I see every day, for the most part, leadership is at least paid some attention, probably because that's all that anybody ever talks about. There is usually some kind of direction and there is usually some kind of goal. There are usually some kind of rules out there, although they are seldom written down and very rarely well communicated. In fact, they're very poorly communicated if they're communicated at all. And sometimes there's values, but they either suffer from that same lack of clarity and communication, or they're just words that sound good posted on the wall. And for some of you bigger organizations, you've paid someone a huge amount of money to do that for you, which is insane and a waste of money. Just a quick one on rules, by the way. In the old days, 15th century, kings and queens were called rulers, not leaders. Why do you think they were called rulers? Because they created the rules. That is the function of leadership. What's just as damaging as not being clear about direction, expectation, vision, values, ethics, and rules? And something that I see in all sizes of organisation is a shocking lack of management. So if leadership is about doing the right things, then management is about doing things right. That is what Peter Drucker said. I have heard that misquoted so many times by people. I'm going to say it again. Leadership is about doing the right things. Management is about doing things right. If you read Stephen Covey, if you read Peter Drucker, if you read any of that, they will tell you exactly the same thing. Leadership is about picking direction. Management is about making sure people get there. And most businesses are not being managed these days because all anybody ever talks about is leadership. That then, to me, is where one of the major problems lie. No one knows the rules. People often don't share the values. Things don't get done right consistently. They don't get done consistently if they get done at all. And then no one does anything about it other than having a whinge about how they don't have any common sense. So, in terms of an effective organisation, and just to throw a spanner in the works of the leadership trainers of Sweat the World, McKinsey, Deloitte, and PwC, the big management consulting firms, employ a staggering 781,000 people between them. There or thereabouts. That's the best figures I can get. And they're not leadership consultants. Now, I know they do leadership programs. I know that they do help with leadership, but they're not called leadership consultants. There may be some big businesses out there that call themselves leadership consulting firms, but I don't know their names. And maybe that's a clue to where the biggest gains in most organizations can be found and what the market will pay for. That's where value is in what the market will pay for. Those 781,000 people work for management consulting firms. They focus on effective processes, efficient operations, great systems that ensure consistency is met. Just for a minute, think of McDonald's. Now, for the most of you, the CEO is not a household name. He is a good leader, but he's not a household name. He's not a Musk or a Bezos or a Gates. And I expect most of you haven't heard of Chris Kiyosaki. Yet here's a man who leads a business with 150,000 direct employees, 40,000 franchises worldwide, who employ collectively another 1.7 million people. Most of you have likely been in one. Did you notice how old the managers are? Did you notice how old the average member of staff is? As far as I'm aware, the average age of a McDonald's manager worldwide is somewhere around about 21 to 22 years old, and the average age of an employee is about 19. This is a $17 billion operation run by teenagers most of us can't get to tidy up their bedrooms. Is that all down to leadership, or is that down to management? Now, 60 years ago, Ray Kroc created a set of values, a set of rules, and a direction for the business. And it was creatively and well led. And yet today, although it is still creatively and well led, they run like clockwork because they're incredibly well managed. If you like, think of good management as organizational engineering that makes the business run efficiently. And this is where the concept of culture architecture comes in, which is based on thought architecture. It's a methodology I developed over the years, focusing on the deliberate design of organizational culture rather than just letting it happen. This isn't about superficial changes, but about foundational shifts in how we perceive leadership, management, teamwork, and performance. It involves reevaluating your leadership style, the systems that you implement, and the processes that you uphold. It's about creating a culture where feedback is not only encouraged, but acted upon, where employees feel valued and understood, and where accountability of their actions and yours is paired with support and development. I'll say that again, where accountability, responsibility, if you like, is expected of your people and is paired with the support and the development to allow them to be better and achieve more. Essentially, it's about doing things differently to the majority of businesses out there. It's about thinking differently. If you want to know why Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, Richard Branson, and any of the other names that you're aware of do so well in business, your Steve Jobs, etc., why they do so well in business and financially, I think it's down to one critical factor that you can adopt. It is because they think differently. They think differently to the vast majority of people on the planet, and they think differently to the vast majority of people running a business. Now, you can call it luck, you can call it timing, or you can give any other excuse, and yes, they are excuses you like for their success. And yet the number one defining factor is how they think. If it's true that most of you are facing similar challenges, despite industry, size, location, or how long you've been in business, and from what I see every day, that is very much true, then it is only the ones who overcome these challenges, these barriers to growth, the problems holding you back, the problems that are making you work ungodly hours, the problems that make you stressed, and sometimes, if you're honest, ready to quit. Those are the ones that will think differently. Those are the ones that will grow. Those are the ones that will solve the problem. It is only those who cultivate the ability to think differently to the masses, those of you that embrace your thought architecture, that you embrace the fact that how you think is up to you, it is those leaders who reap not some of the rewards, but all of the rewards. So deciding to design how you think and deciding to design your culture, that architectural approach, if you like, to creating a business is about pioneering, not following. It's about driving innovation and transformation of your business, the industry, and of your people. I believe that developing this approach is a quintessential strategy for solving your business problems and then securing a rewarding legacy for you, your family, and your business, your employees, and the industry. Now, why doesn't this happen? Well, I think it's worth mentioning that your ego will go out of its way to stop you thinking differently. This kind of approach requires that you constantly accept that you may be wrong at every point. It requires you to be radically open-minded about your thoughts and humble about what you think you already know. And most business owners, most entrepreneurs, most people see this as a weakness and decide to keep doing what they've always done and to keep suffering the consequences that they always suffer, despite knowing that that sounds insane. So, what can we do to apply this, I suppose, abstract concept to a tangible change within your organization? Well, the simple fact is it starts with you. You must be the change you wish to see. You must be the change you wish to see in the world, as I believe it was Gandhi who said that. You must be the change you wish to see in your business. You must embody the qualities you seek in your team. This means having clear direction, a clear set of rules, clear principles. I'll call them principles or ethics if you prefer. But what they are is a non-negotiable code of conduct. That is how you want your people to behave, to accept, to be accountable, to be responsible, whatever it is. This is what setting clear expectations is really all about. It's about providing consistent feedback. It's about creating and fostering an environment where mistakes are seen as opportunities for growth, but people know what's expected of them. Otherwise, how can they step up? Now, another reason why this is difficult for people is because There's a mentality that, okay, so sometimes it's perplexing, but it is understandable, that goes some way to explaining why most of you and most people do not do this. Business owners, particularly those who have built their enterprises from the ground up, often view their businesses as an extension of themselves. That means that any suggestion that their business could be better is, by extension, a suggestion that their business is not good. Now, that's not what people are saying. That's not true that it's not good, just that it could be better. But our brains here, it's not good. And this then would mean that they have to accept that they themselves are at fault. So they themselves are not good. And that's not true, but they could be better. The way the brain hears this, or the way the brain thinks about this, is driven mainly by ego, because it's a direct challenge to your identity. It's a direct challenge to your self worth. And if you accept it, it can be a massive hit to your ego, which is why many people avoid even contemplating that they could be the one causing the issue in the first place. It is far easier to blame your people for having no common sense than it is to have a conversation with someone like me who will ask you that uncomfortable question. Who is it exactly who is in charge of your business? That's why most shy away from such conversations, and they never solve those underlying issues, and then they're doomed to live a life of long hours and stress. They prefer the security, even if it means stagnation, over the vulnerability required for growth. And look, understanding that this fear, while understandable, is counterproductive, doesn't change things. What changes things is action. The most successful entrepreneurs are those who recognize that there's always room for improvement and then do something about it. They understand the path to success is a journey of continuous learning, adaptation, and growth. And it's not always easy, and it's very seldom comfortable. They know that the world is constantly changing, and staying ahead means staying open to new ideas, strategies, and perspectives. And moreover, they understand the need to build systems that support transparency, accountability, responsibility, and continuous learning. And this means that the truly successful ones, the ones who really nail this, understand that they need to lead the culture that they are driving. They need to be the ones that are learning. They need to see that they need to seem to be continuously developing. Because if you don't do it, how can you expect your people to develop? It's about cultivating an ethos of trust, and a word I don't really like to use very much, but empowerment. It's about moving away from the blame game and instead fostering a culture where every team member feels responsible for the collective success and their part in being responsible for that collective success. I know this is easier said than done. It does require a fundamental shift in your mindset. It demands a commitment from you to personal growth and to organizational change. And most people find that daunting. Consider this then. If you're willing to embark on that journey, to critically assess and alter your leadership approach, the rewards will be transformative. Not just in productivity and performance, but in morale, innovation, and satisfaction for you and your team. First step for you is to recognize and accept that you are the one in charge of you. You are the only one who has the power to make the decisions that will shape the future of your business. The decisions you make from today will have a direct impact on the direction of your business in the future. Conversely, it's also the reason why you are where you are. It's because of the decisions you've made up to this point, some good, some bad. And what got you here will not get you to the next step because it needs to be different. That's what growth is all about. And fear is one of the most significant barriers that's holding everyone back from exploring new things. Because it's an inbuilt evolutionary trait that is there to protect you from being mauled by a bear or killed by a rival tribe. And most of your fears in the modern world are around what people will think of you rather than a fear of any kind of personal injury. And yet, for any kind of personal growth or business growth, you're going to have to intentionally step out of that comfort zone and confront whatever it is you fear head on. Whether what you're dealing with is a fear of failure, fear of rejection, ridicule, or just the fear of the unknown, each time you step outside of that comfort zone and deal with the unfamiliar, it helps you build resilience and confidence so that each step becomes easier to do. It helps you see the opportunities for growth. It is only in stepping beyond your comfort zone that we truly come alive. Stepping out is where you overcome fear, develop resilience, acquire new skills, boost creativity, and seize exciting opportunities that might otherwise remain unexplored. So I encourage you, take that leap of faith, embrace the unknown, and watch as your life unfolds in ways you never thought possible. Just remember the magic happens outside your comfort zone. So as we draw to a close of this podcast, I want to leave you with a challenge and an offer. The challenge is for you to reflect on your leadership style, your organizational culture, and the role you play in shaping both. I mean, actually put aside some time in your diary, go somewhere you will not be interrupted and not disturbed. Take a notepad and a pen with you. Put your phone on do not disturb. Set a timer on it for at least 30 minutes. 40 minutes would be better. And place it face down and refuse to pick that phone up until the alarm goes off. Spend the time just thinking about what you're doing and write down whatever comes to mind. Challenge yourself to move beyond the labels you give people and seek out the root causes of the issues that you're facing. What culture do you want? What kind of people do you want? What values have you got? What rules need to be in place? And what will you do about it? And here's my offer. If you're ready to make that change, I'm here to have a conversation. Nothing more. Simply a conversation with business owners and entrepreneurs who think they're ready to start on that journey of designing their culture. If nothing else, it'll get you on the road to thinking differently. It won't be anything else because I'm so confident in the transformative power of my approach, I don't even charge any upfront fees. If I decide to work with you, you don't pay until you've seen some value. This isn't a guarantee, it's a testament to the change I know that can be achieved. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. Let's not just dream of better organisational culture. Let's build it.